This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and let us continue our discussion. So in today's class, we are going to talk about booting procedure. See, booting procedure is one of the very important questions that would be asked during interviews, right? So for that sake, this chapter becomes important. And it is also important because there have been some changes in booting process since Red Hat 6 and then 7 and 8. So I'll try to show you both the booting processes, what we used to have earlier and what is the change we are having now. So booting procedure is nothing but the way your system boots up. When you power on the machine till you get login screen, your system will go through number of phases, and those phases are termed as booting process. That's it, right? So the moment you power on the machine, the first thing that comes into the picture is BIOS, or nowadays UEFI. BIOS or UEFI is nothing but the firmware settings. Whenever you power on the machine, there will be a message appearing, press F2 or F10 or F11 to go into BIOS or UEFI settings. So when we press that F1, F12, F10, whatever, it takes us to the system settings, the motherboard settings, in which you can set date and time. You can arrange boot order. That system should boot first with CD, then network or whatever it might be. Also, you can do some CPU or memory related settings, etc. Most probably, we will set the boot order, like first to boot with floppy if it is not available, CD-ROM if it is not available, hard disk, like that. So suppose I have kept to boot with hard disk. The moment hard disk is detected, inside it, it is going to activate the partition table. Now it could be MBR or GBT, whatever partition table you might have used. Now once this partition table is activated, it is going to activate the first thing, that is bootloader. And the bootloader we used to have in Red Hat 6 is called as grub. Grub stands for Grand Unified Bootloader. The role of bootloader is to boot your system. So it loads some scripts through which the booting activity will continue. And the most important thing it will do is it will activate kernel. Kernel will get activate over here, right? And once the kernel is activated, all the hardware devices will get activated. Printer, scanner, network adapter, right? Hard disks, whatever might be the hardware, it will get activated. And once all hardware is activated, kernel will start the first process in the system, which is init. Init is the first process that gets activated during boot, and only after init gets activated, all the remaining processes will be called out. Init is also called as mother process to all the processes, and only after init activates, all the remaining processes will be called out. And the last thing what init does is it gives rise to run level. See, run level is nothing but a working environment, right? command line environment, graphical environment, single user environment, multi-user environment. Whichever environment you want to go, you can select. Every time the system will boot into that environment only. Now this was the story in Red Hat 6. Now in Red Hat 7 and 8, there are some slight but very important changes. Here also, as soon as you power on BIOS or UEFI, the firmware setting will take charge. It performs some test like everything is good with me to continue or not. Electricity, CPU, memory, everything is fine or not. And then it will check the boot order, how I need to boot. Maybe I have kept first boot as floppy or CD or hard drive. Let us say I have kept hard disk as first boot device, so it will detect the hard drive. And once the hard drive is detected, it will load the partition table, right? MBR or GPT, whatever partition table you might have used, it gets activated. Once it is activated, it gives rise to the bootloader, right? And bootloader name here is grub2. The latest version of grub is grub2. Previously, we used to have grub. Now we have grub2. Grub2 will load some bootable scripts and kernel image and finally activates kernel. And once the kernel is activated, all the devices connected to your system, printer, scanner, network adapter, or other hard disks will get activated. Once it is activated, it gives to the first process in the system, which is called as systemd. Now here is the major change. Since the beginning of Linux, we used to work with init as a mother process. Now it has been retired, and in place of init, a new mother process introduced, which is called as systemd. Systemd is now called as the mother process to all the processes in the system. Only after systemd get activated, all the remaining processes will be called. Now, like init used to have something called run level, same like run level, we are now having a target. Role is absolutely same like run level to give you working environment, command line environment, or graphical environment, single user environment, multi-user environment, whatever. But previously, we used to call it run levels. In systemd, we are calling it targets. And once your target is loaded, you'll get login screen. You need to type username, password, login into the system. So this is the way the system boots. Now let's see each and every phase in little more detail. So as you know, BIOS and UEFI is nothing but the firmware settings. So as soon as you power on the machine, they'll get activated. They'll perform some integrity test, everything is good or not, right? And it search for first bootable device. Whichever is your first bootable device, inside it, it tries to activate that particular, or it will try to detect that particular device. If it is detected, suppose if it is hard disk, so it is going to activate the partition table, MBR or GPT, whichever you might have used. Now MBR and GPT will activate the booting process. It loads some scripts that continues to boot your system, and after that it loads kernel image, and finally it gives rise to the bootloader. And what is the bootloader name in Red Hat 7 and 8? grub2. Grub stands for Grand Unified Bootloader, and now the new version is grub2. And there is a configuration file related to grub2 in which you can make certain changes if you want to make. Now the question is what changes I can make in that configuration. See guys, mostly what happens is grub or grub2 supports multiple kernel images. What does that mean? See, let us say that right now there is a kernel installed in my system 3.18. That's the version of kernel. Then let us say when I go to Red Hat website, some new version of kernel available, maybe 3.20 or 3.80 or 4.20, something like that. So these kernel versions are nothing but service packs. Like in Windows, to update your system, update your operating system, it releases service packs. And when you install that service packs or patches, your kernel or your system becomes up to date. So same way in our Linux, these patches are released in the form of kernel images. So suppose I'm using 3.18 kernel and so many latest kernels are available. Now whichever kernel you want to use, you can install it and upgrade it. So suppose I was working on 3.18 and I upgraded to 4.20. Now once I upgraded to 4.20, problems begins. For example, let us say our application team tells us that this update is not perfect. It is always giving issues, right? So afterwards, we'll come to a conclusion that let us go back again to previous kernel. Let's remove that updated version and go back to previous. The thing is, once you have patched the kernel or update the kernel, then going back is not possible. You need to again freshly install the system and update it to 3.18, then only it is going to work out, right? So this Grub or Grub2 comes with a solution that why would you directly upgrade or update a kernel? See, you can keep 3.18, 3.20, 3.80, 4.20. Keep all kernels. It's like aeroplane. You might have seen that plane has multiple engines. If one engine fail, it continues to go with other engine. So same way over here, we can maintain multiple kernel images. Out of all, one kernel image you can keep as your default kernel image. So whenever the system boot, it continues to boot with that default kernel. Okay, or during boot, if you find any issues with that kernel, then you will have a chance. Every time the system booting, it gives us around 5 seconds of time to stop the booting process, change the kernel and boot with that particular kernel. So to select a default kernel, to increase, decrease the timeout during boot, we can make changes in grub configuration file, right? So like that, you can install multiple kernel images, do your testing. If you are confirmed that this new kernel is perfect for your environment, then finally you can go for upgradation. There wouldn't be any problem. Okay, but before upgrading, you can install a kernel separately and work with that. If it is suitable, you can continue. If it is not suitable, then you can remove that kernel. But once you update the kernel, then downgrading may not be possible. Okay, so let us see that which kernel version we are working with. To check which kernel version we are working, you can go with a command uname -r. To see how many kernels are installed, simply go with the command rpm-q and kernel. So you see we have only one kernel installed, version is 4.18, right? So that's the kernel version we are working, and that's the only kernel. So we don't have choice to make a default kernel. But if you visit this file, grub configuration file is boot grub2 grub.cfg. When we go to this configuration, you will find lots of information is available. Now, I don't want to see all these scripts that how it is going to start, what it is going to do, and all that thing. I'll simply wanted to see what is the timeout value it is giving. So let me go for grep hyphen I timeout. So timeout is nothing but how much time will it give us to stop the booting and change the kernel if required. So during boot, it gives me 5 seconds time. Within that 5 seconds, you have to press any key, stop the booting process. And then you can change the kernel to boot and continue booting with new kernel. So suppose I don't like that 5 minutes, 5 seconds, I'm sorry. I want to make it 9 seconds or 15 seconds, whatever. So you have to edit this file and you need to make it 9 seconds. But guys, if you read this file from the beginning, boot grub2 grub.cfg, what is the heading it is telling you? Do not edit this file, right? That means it is telling you that don't try to manually edit the file. If I cannot edit it, how can I choose different kernel, different default kernel, or how can I increase, decrease the timeout value? See, it says that you have to go and edit another file, etc default grub. Go to that file, make necessary changes, and perform this command, grub2 make config. So guys, if you want to make changes in grub config, you should not directly edit the main file. What is the main file? etc grub grub2 sorry etc grub.cfg or boot grub2 grub.cfg. So this file should not be directly edited. Instead of that, it is asking us to go to etc default grub. So here all default changes related to grub you have to put. If you have multiple kernel images, you can also select a default kernel. But here you won't find any default kernel option because we have only one version of kernel installed. There is no new version available. The reason is we are using latest version of Red Hat. That's the reason there is no scope of doing upgradation. Anyway, so now I'm going to come up here and the timeout value is 5 seconds. Every time the system is booting, I'll be getting 5 seconds of time to stop the booting process and change and boot the kernel. So I would like to increase it to maybe 9 seconds. So from now onwards, I want my system to give me 9 seconds to stop the system. If I don't do anything, it continues with the default value. So let me save and quit that, but only by making the change in that particular file. There will be no change in timeout value. Whenever you have edited the default file, you need to regenerate the configuration file by using a command grub2 make config and apply the changes in boot grub2 grub.cfg. Whenever you have edited the default file, never forget to use this command grub2 make config and apply the changes on boot grub2 grub.cfg. So it says done. There are no errors. Now if I go with timeout value one more time to grep it, you see it increased to 9 seconds. Earlier it was 5 seconds, which is now changed to 9 seconds. Now, once the system starts the booting process, bootloader will come into the picture. It loads bootable script. It loads kernel. Where it loads the kernel? Kernel will be loaded temporarily in init RAM fs. See, inside your RAM, there will be a temporary file system created, RAM fs, in which some important bootable script kernel images will be kept and loaded. The reason is hard disk is not fully activated so far. Your boot, root, swap, all are not completely activated. So it creates a temporary file system in RAM where all your important set of drivers, kernel images are maintained. And once it is done, kernel gets activated, and as soon as kernel get activated, it starts to activate all the important devices of your system: network adapter, printers, scanners, hard disk, partitions. All the important partitions will start mounting, like root, boot, swap. Those will get mounted. And once it is done, it activates the first process in the system, which is called as systemd. Systemd is the mother process to all the process. Only after systemd gets activated, all the remaining processes will be called, like mounting other file systems and activating swap, printing welcome banner, starting SE Linux, right? And many other important tasks this particular systemd will do. And once all the processes are active, then it will activate the target, right? Run level or target. Previously we used to call as run level. Now we are calling it target. So when we used to work with Red Hat 6, we used to have 7 run level 0 till run level 6. Now there were 7 run levels, but out of all, important run level used to be run level 3 and run level 5. So if you have made run level 3 as your default run level, then every time it is guaranteed that system will boot in command line environment. No graphics will be activated. Or if you have chose run level 5 as your default run level, then it was guaranteed that every time the system boot, it boots into graphical environment. So if you want every time to boot in command line, we used to go with run level 3. To have graphical environment every time the system boot, we used to go with run level 5. But now run levels have been replaced by target, but you see the names are still same: run level 3 dot target or run level 5 dot target. So run level 3 dot target will make sure that every time your system boots, it boots into command line by default. No graphics would be there by default. If you want graphics to be there by default, then we'll go with run level 5 dot target. Now run level 3 has one more name, multi-user target, and run level 5 has other name, graphical dot target. Now if you want to see on which run level or target you are working, you can say who-r. So you see it says we are working on run level 5. Run level 5 is nothing but graphical environment. So you just check it out over here. Your system is graphical environment, right? Okay, now let us say that I would like to change it and I'd like to make it command line environment. Every time the system boot, I want command line environment. So for that, normally when we used to work with run levels, we used to select a default run level in a file called etc init tab. Now, as there is no concept of run level, this file is also not in use. But when you read the content, it is very useful. See here it is telling you init tab is no longer used. Systemd uses targets instead of run levels. By default, there are two main targets. Multi-user target, which is nothing but run level 3 command line by default. Graphical target, which is nothing but run level 5. That is graphical by default. To view your current default target, the command is systemctl get default. When you run that command, it tell you that the default target every time what you will be getting is graphical target. To change your default target, you can go with a command systemctl set default followed by the target value. So get for viewing the information and set for changing the information. Okay, so that is how it is going to work out. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'll say systemctl get default to check your current default target. To make it run level 5 dot target or sorry run level 3 dot target or multi-user target, I'll use a command systemctl set default. Now if you press 2 times tab key, it is going to display all the available run levels. There are many run levels, sorry, targets. Previously we used to have only 7 run levels, but now you see there is a huge list of run levels that are available. Now inside it, you can choose any run level you want to work. For example, you can go with run level 3 dot target, run level 5 dot target, or there are simple names for it, graphical target or multi-user target, right? So suppose I want to choose run level 3 dot target. So I'll say run level 3 dot target. Now, if you go with systemctl get default, see earlier it was telling you graphical target. Now it is telling you multi-user target. That means every time the system restart, automatically your system will boot into command line, not in graphics. So let us reboot the machine and confirm. See, first of all, you should observe it is giving you 9 seconds instead of 5 seconds, right? So 9, 8, 7, 6. So within this period, if you press any key, booting process stop. And here it is displaying kernel versions installed. Only one kernel version is there. If there are multiple kernel, I will stop the booting process, move my cursor to 4.20, hit enter, and system will start booting with that particular kernel. So we don't have choice to go with multiple kernel, but at least we have made the timeout value change. Second change is it should boot by default into command line. I don't need graphics by default. See, we can press escape to see the boot process of the system is booting. So let's wait for the booting process to complete. Okay, so you see the system has booted by default into command line environment. There was no graphics. So you just try to log in with username and password, right? And you just run the command who-r. So it says that you are logged in into run level 3. You can simply connect from outside. Let us again restart the connectivity. Let me give username and password. And now I'll say who-r. You see, you are in run level 3 only. So run level 3 will give you by default command line. No graphics is there by default. So let us say that we booted into multi-user target or run level 3 and suddenly we found that we need graphics. So guys, maybe I want to browse internet or I want to run media player. I need a graphical environment right now. We booted into command line environment and we are desiring to get graphical environment. What to do? Shall I change the target and run level and reboot the system? Possible, but you need to reboot the machine. So if you want to avoid rebooting in run level 3, you want to start graphics, then what we can do is we can use a command called startx. See, when you run startx command in run level 3, then automatically it is going to start graphics. I never told that run level 3 does not support graphics. I told by default it comes into command line. But if you need graphics, you need to manually start it by using start x command. Now when I run this command, you can monitor on the other side. Let's say I'll go to terminal. You see terminal is not disconnected. And if you say see, for monitoring anything, the best command is watch. You can say watch who-r. It continuously repeat run level command, sorry, who-r command. So every 2 seconds, who-r command is executed, and you see run level 3 is never changed. You are still in run level 3, and look in the background, graphics have been started, right? So this is the way how you can manually start graphics in run level 3 in order to get graphical environment. Now please don't run startx command on putty because putty does not support graphics. Even if you type startx command over here, it is going to be waste of time, right? Because putty does not support graphics. You run 100 times startx command will fail. Okay. All right. Now let us say that I want to get back all my previous things. First of all, if I go with grep-i timeout in boot grub2 grub.cfg, the default timeout value is 9 seconds. So suppose I want to reduce it back to 5 seconds. Testing is over. I want to back it with 5 seconds. So you need to again go to etc default grub. This file, line number 1, grub timeout, I'll change it to 5 seconds. When you make it 5 seconds, only by making change in the file, there is no change going to happen in grub configuration. After editing that, what we have to do, you need to regenerate the file by using what command? Grub to make config and apply the changes on boot grub2 grub.cfg. Okay, now if I go with grep-i timeout value, you'll see that here you are getting 5 seconds of timeout value. Okay, now moving forward, let us also change your default run level or target. To check your default target, you can go with a command systemctl get default. So over here you can see that the default target is multi-user target. That means every time the system is going to boot with command line. Now let us say that you want to boot with graphics. So I'll say systemctl set default. See, you can say graphical.target to make it a graphical target, or you can say run level 5 dot target. Both are one and the same. Now if I say systemctl get default, you see it says your system is going to boot into graphical target all the time. One more thing before I reboot the system, see if you want to check what is the last time system boot, how it boot. To see the boot time log, you can go with a file var log boot.log. See, boot.log will store the information about how the system was booted last time. So suppose you have a doubt that maybe last time booting there was issue, I want to check. In fact, boot.log will store information about every time the system boots. So since your installation, right, February 17, you see how the system booted. Then if you go down, you may find out other dates also, right? Like you see February 20. Same way you can go, right? So the last booting process, what it might be storing is last tomorrow, day after tomorrow, how it was working. If there are any issues, here you can find out what might be the issue related to your booting and all. So every time we may not be sitting watching the booting process, right? So you can watch this log file for any problems that might have faced during booting. Like over here, you see it says some issues were there, then it resolved, system started booting, or it has took you into what I can say emergency mode or something like that. Okay. See guys, I'm not telling you one thing. I'm changing the password of root. Why I'm doing that, you'll understand. Okay. Now let us reboot the system. Two things we have to observe here, whether it gives you 5 seconds time at the booting or not. And system comes up, see 5 second time it has given. I'm not doing anything. So system continue to boot with default things. Next thing is it should boot into graphical environment. See, when the booting process starts, you can press escape to see live booting process. So I'll press escape. It will start showing me how system is booting. So you see the system booted and it is booted into graphical environment. Now guys, in graphical environment, if you want to log in as root, then you have to go to not listed. Root name will not be listed. So go to not listed, type the name of the user and type your password. See, I'm trying our regular password Red Hat. So it says it did not work. One more time, I'll again repeat Red Hat. So it says it did not work. So that means I'm typing a wrong password. Maybe I forgot the root password, or maybe someone else changed the root password. Now we are not remembering that password. So what to be done in this scenario if we have forgotten the root password? How to recover the last root password, or maybe how to recover or how to reset. The better word will be how to reset the root password to whatever you want, right? So let us say I want to change the root password now. So system is locked. I'm not able to log in with root. So how can we reset or recover the root password? See, to reset or recover root password, there is no other choice. You have to go into emergency mode. That's the only way. With that, you can recover or reset your root password. So we have no choice but to restart the system. So I'll simply go to our virtual box console and I'll say restart or reset. Now once the system is restarting, the countdown appear and you can press any key here. As soon as you press any key, like I have pressed up arrow, when I press a key, automatically the booting process will stop. Now as it stops, it is giving me a choice that I can type E, E to go into edit mode so that I can make some changes in that kernel value, which is very much important. So keep the cursor in line number 1 and type E. When you press E, automatically it opens some kernel arguments. Now in this, go to line number 4, which starts with Linux. Previously, it used to start with Linux 16. Now simply Linux. So we don't have to worry, whatever it might be. If it is starting with Linux, we have to go to that line. Now this line is quite big. It goes till 3 lines. So I need to go to the end of this particular line. I need to reach out here. After quite, I need to type something. Okay, so how to go directly to the end of that line? One way is you can go letter by letter, letter by letter like that, or you can press Control E. When I press Control E, automatically the cursor will be taken to the end of the line. Now over here, you can type one keyword rd dot break. When you write rd dot break here, as soon as the system continue to boot, it find rd break and it will take you into emergency mode. Now guys, this activity what I'm showing you is not a freeware activity that anybody can do that. I forgot to mention that we need to take approval first. If your higher authority approve it, then only you should continue with this activity. Without taking approval, if you do it manually on your own, then it will be treated as security breach and it will come on your job. So be very careful that don't come into emergency mode by manually. You must get an approval. If they approve, come. If they don't approve, don't go for it. Okay, so now it says that press Control X to start. So I'll press Control X to continue booting. So what we did during boot, we press any key, stop the kernel. Then in the kernel line, we press E. It took you to command line argument. You went to line X, went to end of the line and pass a parameter rd dot break. All these steps, whatever I have discussed, is available in your manual, right? Pressing E, right, and rd dot break, and you see this is going to bring you into emergency mode. Let's go back to our virtual machine. So it says that entering emergency mode. So now we are into emergency mode. Now emergency mode is also called as maintenance mode or repair mode, where I can access my operating system even if it is in the faulty state. Like over here, I have lost the root password and I want to recover it. So I am not inside my operating system. If I am in operating system, password command should work. Is it working? No. So I am in between booting and my operating system. Now in here, where is my operating system? So when you run mount command, you will come across one directory called sysroot. So sysroot is your operating system. You need to go into sysroot, you will get OS. When you are in OS, you can run password command and recover the password. But guys, it is not so simple. Over here, what happens is, for security reason, sysroot is not mounted in read and write mode. Now, if I say mount and grep for sysroot, just observe over here that sysroot is available in read-only format. Now, if something is in read only, that means you can just read it. You cannot make change in anything inside it. So if I want to make change like password change or any other change, I need to mount it in read and write, both format. So how can I change the mode of that partition now? To change the mode of that partition or directory, we need to use this special command mount -o remount. I'm telling that, okay, it is mounted, just remount it. It's like refreshing. I'm not going to unmount it, I'm just refreshing, remount with a new option read write. To which partition or directory? Sysroot. Now when I hit enter, go back with mount command and grep for sysroot. Just observe over here that earlier it was read only and now we have successfully changed it to read write. Otherwise you cannot change anything inside it. Now next thing is, I want to go into sysroot to access my operating system. How can I go into sysroot? You can just say cd sysroot. But guys, saying cd sysroot will not make you root user. It won't give you admin rights to change root password. So cd command is waste over here. You need to use the command chroot. Change me as a root. Make me as a root to that directory so that I can access it with root power. And when I go inside it, it should give me root environment to work with. So let me hit enter. Now go back and check it out. You are now inside your operating system. Now you have been given which username? Root username. Now as a root, if I have logged in, how can I change my own password? By using passwd command. When you run passwd, it asks you for your new password. So you can set anything. I'm resetting it to Red Hat, our regular password, right? So 2 times I have given password. It says I accept it. Perfect. So password is changed now. Now guys, once you have changed the password, there is one more thing what we have to do. That is creating a hidden file in slash. How to create a hidden file? By using dot at the beginning. If you create a file or directory name starting with dot, it will hide it. What is the name? Auto relabel. See, whenever there is an hidden file with the name auto relabel created in slash, the system will automatically relabel SE Linux policy. See, SE Linux is related to security. So we came into emergency mode, we broken the security, then we changed the password. Now, don't you think that SE Linux should be updated? If SE Linux is not updated with that change, it won't allow that new password to work. So once the password is changed, it is mandatory that SE Linux policies should be relabeled. To force SE Linux policies to relabel, just create this hidden file auto relabel. Now you can say exit to leave root environment. One more time you can say exit and you can continue booting. So guys, this concept is very important. Let me repeat all these tasks one more time. So one more time, I am restarting my virtual machine. As soon as the countdown appear, press any arrow. And you see you can go to any kernel image, but we have only one kernel image, so we are going to line number 1. And we'll type E to edit the selected item. Now over here we will come to Linux line and we'll go Control E to go to the end of the line. And here I'll type rd dot break. Then I'll press Control X to continue booting. Now system will boot into emergency mode or repair mode or maintenance mode where all problems of your OS can be addressed. Okay, now I'm going to check sysroot. So I'll say mount grep for sysroot. So it says sysroot is available, but it is available in read-only mode. So we need to make it read write. I'll go with mount-o remount with a new option read write. Which directory? Sysroot. Now go back and check it out. Earlier it was read only, which is now changed to read and write. Now as it is changed to read and write, you can say chroot and I'll go into sysroot. When you go into sysroot, you are, sysroot, S-Y-S, spelling mistake I have done. Now you are into your operating system. You have been logged in as root user. To change my own password, I'll simply use password command and I'll change the password to whatever you want. Now all the things are done. Now if you want SE Linux to not create any problem, you must relabel SE Linux policies by creating a hidden file in slash with the name dot auto relabel. No spelling mistake should be done. Now leave your OS, leave your emergency mode. It is going to continue boot with your operating system. It's like we are in a journey. We started from home to go to our office. Now in between we stopped somewhere. Maybe we took gas or petrol and then we continue to boot. So same way here we stop in emergency mode, we made some changes and now the booting processes continue to work. Now here you will find that as soon as it continues to boot, automatically it is going to relabel SE Linux policies. And yesterday we saw guys how much time will it take to relabel? It take at least 5 to 6 minutes to relabel all policies. So what we need to do is patiently we should wait, we should give it some time to continue. So you see at the bottom it is displaying that SE Linux policies are going to get relabeled. So thing just wait for this thing to complete. And you know what happens when SE Linux relabeling is happening? Once the relabeling is successful, your system will automatically reboot. So we'll just wait for SE Linux to complete and reboot the system. Once the system is rebooting, then we can be relaxed that okay, things are working fine. So let's wait for it, guys. Approximately around 5 minutes we have to give it. What Hamse? I did not got your question. What is what? Rescue is also like a safe mode, but we don't use it much. Direct method, what I have shown you, that is safer than rescue. It's also like a safe mode. It takes you, if the system is having issues, it take you into rescue mode where you can run some commands and try to repair. But emergency mode is the best mode. Avoid using rescue. It's little complicated. Till 2-3 minutes might take. Let's wait for it. Once the SE Linux policies are relabeled, then it is going to work smoothly and your password will be updated. If SE Linux is not relabeled, then your password will not work. SE Linux is going to create a problem, right? So we need to give it time so that it updates itself and no issues would be arises with the change in password. Okay, so you see the system is now getting restarted. This time the booting will be quite normal. Once it is booted, we'll try our reset password, that is Red Hat. Last time I changed the password and forgot. So now we have reset it to Red Hat. Let's see, will it work or not? Okay, so let me try with not listed user. I'll give a root name and we'll give the password as Red Hat. See, last time it says that didn't work, but this time it did not stop us. We are able to log in, and you see we logged in successfully, right? So this is the way we can reset the root password and we can log in this fashion. Now, one more problem, guys, what we might face regularly, right? That your bootloader failed. Sometimes what happens whenever you have updated the bootloader or kernel patching happen, bootloader fails. Now, if bootloader fails, your system will not boot at all. The moment you start your system, instead of giving that countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, simply messages will come: grub not found, bootloader missing, grub error, but system is not going to continue booting. So what would you do in that scenario? Say if root password is lost, you went into emergency mode and fixed it. But guys, if there is a problem in the bootloader, system will not boot. It does not boot. How you will go into emergency mode and fix it? The system is dead. It is not booting. You power on the machine, you are getting message grub not found, grub error, grub missing, grub synchronized, all that thing errors you are getting. So if your bootloader is corrupted and system is not booting, then you have to reinstall bootloader. But to reinstall bootloader, I need my operating system. OS is dead. I cannot even go into emergency mode, right? No emergency mode, no rescue mode, nothing. You power on the machine and error. No countdown, nothing is appearing. So in that scenario, the only thing you have to do is you have to boot with Red Hat DVD. So just go into settings of your virtual machine, go to storage and make sure that DVD is connected. As of now, it is not connected. I'm connecting to 8.3 DVD. And also make sure that DVD is first boot device. So you see DVD is first bootable device. So let me go with OK. Let me power on the machine. So guys, the problem is bootloader is down. It's not booting the system. The moment you power on, you are getting grub error, but no countdown, nothing is being displayed. So you need to boot with Red Hat DVD. Once you boot with Red Hat DVD, go to troubleshooting option. In troubleshooting, you will find there is an option called Rescue Red Hat Enterprise System. Now this rescue is very beautiful when compared to that rescue image that was displaying during boot, right? This rescue will allow you to access your OS even if it is completely in dead state. So when your bootloader is not working, system is not booting, you want to at least bring your data out of your system, then you have to make use of rescue mode. Select the option with rescue mode and hit enter. See guys, what are the questions it is going to ask us? Let's discuss here. So the bootloader was not booting. We boot with Red Hat DVD, and in Red Hat DVD, we went with Rescue Red Hat Linux System. Now, when I hit end and continue, after a while, it gives me a message that we are going to go into rescue environment, and in rescue environment, your OS will be kept in /mnt/sys image, right? So in emergency mode, it was sysroot, right? Here it is mnt sys image. So it says we will find your OS and we will keep it in mnt sys image. And it is asking us to type continue. So you need to type 1 and hit enter, and it will start searching your OS and it will try to mount it on mnt sys image. Now once you say that, after a while, it will come up with a message that your OS has been found and is mounted under MNT sys image. Now, if you want to get root environment to make admin changes, you have to use a command chroot mnt sys image. When you give chroot mnt sys image, automatically your location will be changed to operating system. You can go into OS and you can make necessary changes. You can reinstall bootloader also. So let's see, did we reach that location or not? Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay, the system is still booting. Installer is starting. So in a while, it is going to give us the option that rescue mode will now try to find your OS and it will try to keep it under MNT sysimage. I'll say type 1 and hit enter. The moment you type 1 and hit enter, it will start searching your OS. And if it found, it will mount under MNT sysroot. Oh, I'm so sorry. Over here you see they have changed the location now. as we move to Red Hat 8.3. Till Red Hat 8.2, the location was MNT sysimage. Now you see very cleverly they have changed it, right? Now the new location is MNT sysroot instead of MNT sysimage. Okay, so a small change that is observed in 8.3. See, full-fledged 8.3 version I have started from you. So till Red Hat 8.2, the location was MNT sysimage. Just to map that sysroot option, I guess they have made this change, right? So now the location is MNT sysroot. So this says that if you want to access your OS, you have to go to MNT sysroot. So a small change happened. Earlier it used to be sysimage. Now they renamed to sysroot. Okay. Small change comes every now and then. They are asking you to press enter to get a shell. So let me press enter and you see we got a shell. Now I'll simply run the command chroot mnt sysroot. Now this take it to your operating system. Now you can run any command. If you want, you can change the password, you can run fsck command, or you can run fdisk-l. See, just run fdisk-l and find what is your hard disk name. See, the hard disk name is /dev sda. So in that hard disk, I have my bootable partitions. So what I need to do here is I need to reinstall my bootloader in dev-sda. To go with dev-sda, I'll go with a command called grub to install. See guys, whenever your bootloader is corrupted, you want to reinstall it, then you have to come to rescue mode, and in rescue mode you have to run the command grub to install. On which hard drive? Dev SDA that contains my operating system. So when I hit enter, it start doing installation, and you see installation finished without any error. If error is reported, you have to repeat this command 2-3 times. So as of now, you see your bootloader got installed. So this thing will fix issues with your bootloader. If bootloader is missing, grub is giving issues, then simply come to rescue mode and reinstall grub2. Very simple format was there. Boot with Red Hat DVD, go to rescue mode, choose option number 1 as it gives the option, then hit enter. It gives you shell. On the shell, you have to type chroot mnt sysroot. Now, earlier it was sysimage, now it is sysroot. So when I say chroot sysroot, you see we are here. And once we are here, we are able to make the changes. Now you have to leave your OS and let me shut down the machine. Why I'm shutting down? Because I have to change the boot order. If I don't change the boot order, then every time the system will boot, it will boot into DVD. I don't want to boot every time with DVD, so I just powered off the machine. Let me go into the settings of my virtual machine. I'll go to system. See, I'll select hard disk and put it up so that every time the system should boot with hard disk. Now let me power on the machine.
Sir, we have to select a partition name or entire drive we have to select SDA.
Entire drive, no partition name. Automatically in the drive, it will go with partition. You just need to say this disk, that's it. In the disk, automatically it will find that bootable partition.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
You see the system is booting now, and you will find one behavior here. Whenever a new bootloader is installed, and for the first time you are booting after bootloader installation, you will find that automatically SE Linux policies will get relabeled. We never asked to relabel SE Linux policy. We did not create a .auto relabel file also. But whenever bootloader is reinstalled, compulsorily at next reboot, this is automatic behavior happening. In password recovery, we have to force SE Linux relabel. But in grub recovery, automatically at next boot, you are going to have this behavior. SE Linux policies will be relabeled. So these are very important troubleshootings, guys, what we have seen, that if you have lost the root password, how to recover, and if your system fails to boot, how to reinstall bootloader and make it boot again. So for today, guys, this is it. I'm not going to go beyond that. If you have any more questions, you can put your questions, or otherwise we can stop the session.
So nowadays, all the we are getting all the systems through servers through PuTTY only, right? We don't know where the servers are exactly. Simply
Hmm.
they are providing IP, and based on that we are connecting. See if
Okay.
if any issues comes, how can we resolve? Like here we are VM, we are able to see we are getting graphical mode.
See, you must know, like hostname.ctl command will tell you that whether you are working on a physical machine or a virtual machine. If you're working on a virtual machine, is it Oracle's virtual machine or ESX virtual machine, or is it a cloud instance, right? So whichever environment you are working, they will definitely allow you to access your machine, right? Obviously, we are working with IP address, but such things cannot be worked on IP address. If your system is down, do you expect IP address to work, right? So we need to go and get help. Suppose your environment is virtualized. There is virtualization team. So you need to get consult with your virtualization team. You need to get access to the console and you have to repair this thing. But with PuTTY, it is not possible to repair and do these all things.
Yeah.
Well, okay, guys, we'll stop the session here. Let's meet up tomorrow and let's see some more important topics tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much.